Clifford J.Rogers is a professor of history at the United States Military Academy at West Point. He has also been a Leverhulme Visiting Professor at Swansea University, an Olin Fellow in Military and Strategic History at Yale, and a Fulbright Fellow at the Institute of Historical Research in London. Rogers writes mainly on medieval military history. His War, Cruel and Sharp, English Strategy under Edward III, 1327–1360 won the 2003 Verbruggen Prize awarded by Dare Military. He has also been awarded the Royal Historical Society's Alexander Prize Medal and a Society for Military History Moncado Prize for his articles, some of which are collected in his essays on medieval military history, strategy, military revolutions and the 100 Years' War. His Soldiers' Lives Through History, the Middle Ages, received the 2009 Verbruggen Prize. A podcast of a lecture based on part of the book, focusing on the soldier's experience of battle, has been posted by NYMAS at http://nymas.org. Podcasts. HTML. He is also the editor of the 3-volume Oxford Encyclopedia of Medieval Warfare and Military Technology, which received a Distinguished Book Award from the Society for Military History, The Wars of Edward III, Sources and Interpretations and the Military Revolution Debate, and co-editor of the Journal of Medieval Military History, the West Point History of the Civil War, and the essay collection Civilians in the Path of War. He is co-senior editor of the 71-chapter interactive digital military history textbook, The West Point History of Warfare, which received the 2016 Society of Military History George C. Marshall Foundation Prize for the use of digital technology in teaching military history. Although Rogers' work on military revolutions has found favor with many historians, some argue that his analysis suffers from technological determinism. Publications. Books. The Military Revolution Debate, ed. Clifford J.Rogers. The Wars of Edward III. Sources and Interpretations, ed. Clifford J.Rogers. War, Cruel and Sharp, English Strategy under Edward III, 1327–1360. Civilians in the Path of War, ed. Mark Grimsley and Clifford J. Rogers. Soldiers' Lives Through History, the Middle Ages. Essays on medieval military history, strategy, military revolutions, and the 100 Years' War. The Oxford Encyclopedia of Medieval Warfare and Military Technology. Editor-in-Chief, Associate Editor for France, and Joint Associate Editor for Britain. 3 vols. The West Point History of Warfare. Senior editors Clifford J. Rogers and James T. Sidule. A 71-chapter history of warfare with 49 authors. Created for iPad interactive format. Beta version release 2013-14. Version 1.0 release forthcoming 2015-16. The West Point History of the Civil War, ed. Clifford J. Rogers, James T. Sidule, and Samuel J. Watson. Print edition. Enhanced e-book edition. The West Point History of World War II, Volume 1, ed. Clifford J. Rogers, James T. Sidule, and Steve R. Waddell. Print edition. Enhanced e-book edition. Scholarly articles and book chapters. Edward III and the Dialectics of Strategy, 1327–1360. Transactions of the Royal Historical Society, 6th Sir. 4. 83–102. Reprinted in The Wars of Edward III, and in Kelly de Vries, ed. Medieval Warfare, 1300–1450. The Military Revolutions of the 100 Years' War. The Journal of Military History, 57, 241–278. Reprinted with revisions in C. J. Rogers, ed. The Military Revolution Debate, and reprinted in Paul E. J. Hammer, ed. Warfare in early modern Europe, 1450 to 1660. The offensive, defensive in medieval strategy. From Cressy to Mohacs, warfare in the late Middle Ages. Actor of the 22nd Colloquium of the International Commission of Military History, 158 to 171. The efficacy of the medieval longbow, a reply to Kelly de Vries. War in History 5 No. 2, 233 to 42. An unknown news bulletin from the Siege of Tournai in 1340. War in History 5 No. 3, 358 to 366. The Scottish Invasion of 1346. Northern History 34, 51 to 69. 3 new accounts of the Neville's Cross Campaign, C.J.Rogers and M.C. Buck. Northern History 34, 70 to 81. The Age of the 100 Years' War in Medieval Warfare, A History, ed. Morris Keane, 136 to 160. A continuation of the Manuel d'Histoire de Philippe Vi for the years 1328 to 1339. English Historical Review, CXIV, 1256 to 1266. Military Revolutions and Revolutions in Military Affairs. A Historian's Perspective in Thierry Gongora and Harold von Rieckhoff. Toward a Revolution in Military Affairs. Defense and Security at the Dawn of the 21st Century. 21 to 36. The Anglo-French peace negotiations of 1354 to 1360 reconsidered in the age of Edward III, ed. James Bothwell, 193 to 213. As if a new sun had arisen, England's 14th century RMA in the dynamics of military revolution, 1300 to 2050, ed. MacGregor, Knox and Williamson Murray, 15 to 34. By Fire and Sword, Bellum Hostile and Civilians in the 100 Years' War in Civilians in the Path of War, ed. Mark Grimsley and Clifford J.Rogers, 33 to 78. Clausewitz, Genius and the Rules. Journal of Military History, 66, 1167 to 76. The Vegetian Science of Warfare in the Middle Ages. Journal of Medieval Military History 1, 1 to 20. The Bergerac Campaign and the Generalship of Henry of Lancaster. Journal of Medieval Military History 2, 89 to 110. The Medieval Legacy. Early Modern Military History, ed. Jeff Mortimer, 6 to 24. Henry V's A Military Strategy in 1415. The 100 Years' War, A Wider Focus, ed. L.J. Andrew Villalone and Donald J. Kagay, 399 to 427. Sir Thomas Dagworth in Brittany, 1346 to 7. Restelo and La Roche-Derrien. Journal of Medieval Military History 3, 127 to 154. The Battle of Agincourt. The 100 Years' War, Different Vistas, ed. L.J. Andrew Villalone and Donald J. Kagay, 37 to 132. The Practice of War, A Companion to the Medieval World, ed. Edward D. English and Carol L. Lansing, 435 to 454. The Black Prince in Gascony and France, according to MS 78 of Corpus Christi College, Oxford. Journal of Medieval Military History 7, 168 to 175. The Idea of Military Revolutions in 18th and 19th Century Texts, Revisited Historia das Ideas 30, 395 to 415. Tactics in the Face of Battle, in Frank Tallet and D. J. B. Trim eds. European Warfare, 1350 to 1750, 203 to 235. The Artillery and Artillery Fortress Revolutions Revisited, in Nicolas Proutot, Emmanuel de Croix-Chanel and Nicolas Faucher eds. Artillery a Fortification, 1200 to 1600, 75 to 80. The Longbow, The Infantry Revolution and Technological Determinism. The Journal of Medieval History 37, 321 to 341. Giraldus Cambrensis, Edward I, and the Conquest of Wales, in Successful Strategies, Triumphing in War and Peace from Antiquity to the Present, ed. Williamson Murray and Richard Hart Sinriage, 65 to 99. Carolingian Cavalry in Battle, The Evidence Reconsidered, in Crusading and Warfare in the Middle Ages, Realities and Representations, Essays in Honor of John France, ed. Simon John and Nicholas Morton, 1 to 11, Early and High Medieval Warfare. The West Point History of Warfare, Senior eds. Clifford J. Rogers and James T. Sigel, Chapter eds. Clifford J. Rogers and John Stapleton, Jr. Warfare in the Late Middle Ages, The 100 Years' War, 1337 to 1453. The West Point History of Warfare, ed. Clifford J. Rogers and James T. Sigel, Volume 1, European Warfare to 1900, Senior eds. Clifford J. Rogers and James T. Sigel, Chapter eds. Clifford J. Rogers and John Stapleton, Jr. Warfare, 500 in the Cambridge History of the World, Volume 5, Expanding Webs of Exchange in Conquest, 500 CE to 1500 CE, ed. Benjamin Cader and Mary Wiesner Hanks, Afghanistan, The 30 Years' War and Counting, by Lester W. Grau and Clifford J. Rogers, in the West Point History of Warfare, Senior eds. Clifford J. Rogers and James T. Sigel, Chapter eds. Clifford J. Rogers and Gail Yoshitani, The War at Midpoint, in the West Point History of World War II, ed. Clifford J. Rogers, Ty Sigel and Steve R. Waddell, 281 to 290. The Anglo-Burgundian Alliance in the 100 Years' War. Grand Strategy and Alliances, ed.